Charles Lincoln Van Doren is an American intellectual, writer, and editor who was involved in a television quiz show scandal in the 1950s. In 1959 he confessed before the United States Congress that he had been given the correct answers by the producers of the show 21. Background: the son of Pulitzer Prize-winning poet and literary critic teacher Mark Van Doren and novelist and writer Dorothy Van Doren, a nephew of critic and Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer Carl Van Doren, Charles Van Doren was a committed academic with an unusually broad range of interests. He graduated from the High School of Music and Art and then earned a BA degree in liberal arts from St. John's College in Annapolis, Maryland, as well as a master's degree in astrophysics and a doctorate in English, both at Columbia University. He was also a student at Cambridge University in England. In 1962, Van Doren wrote an article about encyclopedias called The Idea of an Encyclopedia. Quiz show star, 21 was not Van Doren's first interest. He was long believed to have approached producers Dan Enright and Albert Friedman, originally, to appear on Tic-Tac-Toe, another game they produced. Van Doren eventually revealed a 5 decades after his 21 championship and fame, in a surprise article for The New Yorker that he did not even own a television set, but had met Friedman through a mutual friend, with Friedman initiating the idea of Van Doren going on television by way of asking what he thought of Tic-Tac-Toe. Enright and Friedman were impressed by Van Doren's polite style and telegenic appearance, thinking the youthful Columbia teacher would be the man to defeat their incumbent 21 champion, Herb Stempel, and boost the show's slowing ratings as Stempel's reign continued. In January 1957, Van Doren entered a winning streak that ultimately earned him more than $129,000 and made him famous, including an appearance on the cover of Time on February 11, 1957. His 21 run ended on March 11, when he lost to Vivienne Nearing, a lawyer whose husband Van Doren had previously beaten. After his defeat he was offered a 3-year contract with NBC. Numerous writings since have suggested Van Doren was offered a job as a special cultural correspondent for the Today Show almost at ONC, but Van Doren subsequently reminded people that his first job was as a newswriter, short-lived, before he began doing small pieces for Today host Dave Garraway's weekend cultural program, Wide World pieces that led quickly to Garraway's inviting Van Doren to join Today. Van Doren also made guest appearances on other NBC programs, even serving as Today's substitute host when Garraway took a brief vacation. Quiz show scandal: when allegations of cheating were first raised, by Stempel and others, Van Doren denied any wrongdoing, saying it's silly and distressing to think that people don't have more faith in quiz shows. As the investigation by the District Attorney's Office and eventually U.S. Congress progressed, Charles Van Doren, now host on the Today Show, was under pressure from NBC to testify, in order to avoid the committee's subpoena. It was another former 21 contestant, an artist named James Snodgrass, who would finally provide indisputable corroborating proof that the show had been rigged. Snodgrass had documented every answer he was coached on in a series of registered letters he mailed to himself prior to the show being taped. 1 month after the hearings began, Van Doren emerged from hiding and confessed before the committee that he had been complicit in the fraud. On November 2, 1959, he admitted to the House Subcommittee on Legislative Oversight, a United States Congress subcommittee, chaired by Arkansas Democrat Orrin Harris, that he had been given questions and answers in advance of the show. "I was involved, deeply involved, in a deception. The fact that I, too, was very much deceived cannot keep me from being the principal victim of that deception, because I was its principal symbol. There may be a kind of justice in that. I'd own a unregistered trademark no. I do know, and I can say it proudly to this committee, that since Friday, October 16, when I finally came to a full understanding of what I had done and of what I must do, I have taken a number of steps toward trying to make up for it. I have a long way to go. I have deceived my friends, and I had millions of them. Whatever they're feeling for me now, my affection for them is stronger today than ever before. I'm making this statement because of them. I hope my being here will serve them well and lastingly. I ask to let me go on honestly, without receiving help. He said that was impossible. He told me that I would not have a chance to defeat Stempel because he was too knowledgeable. He also told me that the show was merely entertainment and that giving help to quiz contests was a common practice and merely a part of show business. This of course was not true, but perhaps I wanted to believe him. He also stressed the fact that by appearing on a nationally televised program I would be doing a great service to the intellectual life, to teachers and to education in general, by increasing public respect for the work of the mind through my performances. In fact, I think I have done a disservice to all of them. I deeply regret this, since I believe nothing is of more vital importance to our civilization than education. Authorities differ regarding the audience's reaction to Van Doren's statement. David Halberstam writes in his book The 50s that, aware of Van Doren's great popularity, the committee members handled him gently and repeatedly praised him for his candor. Only Congressman Steve Dearonian announced that he saw no particular point in praising someone of Van Doren's exceptional talents and intelligence for simply telling the truth. With that, the room suddenly exploded with applause, and, congressional investigator Richard N. Goodwin knew at that moment ordinary people would not so easily forgive Van Doren. By contrast, William Manchester, in his narrative history The Glory and the Dream, recounts a diametrically opposite response. The crowd at the hearing had been with Van Doren, applauding him and his admirers on the subcommittee and greeting Congressman Dearonian's comment with stony silence. An Associated Press story, dated November 2, 1959, seems to verify Halberstam's version of events. As quoted from the November 3, 1959 edition of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. While there was a burst of applause when Mr. Harris dismissed Mr. Van Doren with a "God bless you," there was applause too, when Representative Stephen B. Dearonian, Republican, New York, declined to go along with compliments that other committee members showered on the witness for telling the truth. "I don't think an adult of your intelligence ought to be commended for telling the truth," Mr. Dearonian declared in severe tones. Mr. Van Doren winced, flushed, and ducked his head. Stephen Dearonian and the congressional subcommittee that investigated the 1950s quiz show scandals are presented in Robert Redford's 1994 film Quiz Show, where Dearonian dissents, saying, "I'm happy that you've made the statement. But I cannot agree with most of my colleagues. See, I don't think an adult of your intelligence should be commended for simply, at long last, telling the truth." His actual remarks, taken from the published transcript, were, "Mr. Van Doren, I am happy that you made the statement, but I cannot agree with most of my colleagues who commended you for telling the truth, because I don't think an adult of your intelligence ought to be commended for telling the truth." Aftermath: Van Doren was dropped from NBC and resigned from his post of assistant professor at Columbia University. He became an editor at Praeger Books and a pseudonymous writer, before becoming an editor of the Encyclopaedia Britannica and the author of several books, of which the popular market text A History of Knowledge may be his best known. He also co-authored a well-received revision of How to Read a Book with its original author, philosopher Mortimer J. Adler, and co-edited with him a 1,771-page anthology titled Great Treasury of Western Thought. He had already worked with Adler on an 18-volume collection of documents covering American history, entitled The Annals of America, which was accompanied by a 2-volume, 1,300-page topical index organized around 25 themes and entitled Great Issue in American Life, a conspectus. In his eventual article in The New Yorker, Van Doren revealed he had actually been contemplating the Britannica job even at the height of his celebrity, taking a long walk with his father around the farmlands they both loved. The elder Van Doren mentioned to his son that Mortimer J. Adler, the philosopher and a member of Britannica's board of editors, had spoken of making Van Doren Britannica's editor-in-chief. Van Doren eventually accepted the job, he would write, by way of intercession from a former college roommate. Van Doren retired from Britannica in 1982. Van Doren also revealed he had been offered an opportunity to do a PBS series on the history of philosophy but that its tentative producer, Julian Cranin, might actually have had in mind Van Doren's explicit cooperation on a planned PBS program recalling the quiz show scandals. When that did not occur, Van Doren wrote, Cranen later sought his cooperation and consultation when Robert Redford was beginning to make quiz show even conveying that Van Doren would be paid in six figures for it. After wrestling with the idea and, he wrote, noting his wife's objections Van Doren rejected it. It would be 5 decades before Van Doren finally broke his silence on the quiz show scandal to New Yorker magazine. Today, both Van Doren and his wife, Jerry, are adjunct professors of English at the University of Connecticut, Torrington branch. They live in a small, old house on the land his parents bought near Falls Village, Connecticut over 80 years earlier. Film version: the story of the quiz show scandal and Van Doren's role in it is depicted in the film Quiz Show, produced and directed by Robert Redford and written by Paul Attanasio. The film made $24 million by April 1995, and was nominated for Academy Awards in the categories of Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor in a Supporting Role, and Best Adapted Screenplay. The film earned several critiques questioning its use of dramatic license, its accuracy, and the motivation behind its making. The critics have included Joseph Stone, the New York prosecutor who began the investigations, and Jeffrey Hart, a Dartmouth College scholar, senior editor of National Review, and a longtime friend of Van Doren, who saw the film as falsely implying tension between Van Doren and his accomplished father. Until recently Van Doren had refused interviews or public comment on the subject of the quiz show scandals. In a 1985 interview on the Today Show his only appearance on the program since his dismissal in 1959, plugging his book The Joy of Reading he answered a general question in how the scandal changed his life. He has revisited Columbia University only twice in the 40 years that followed his resignation, in 1984, when his son John graduated, and, in 1999, at a reunion of Columbia's class of 1959. The graduating class of 1959 entered the university when Van Doren first became a teacher there in 1955. During the latter appearance, Van Doren made one allusion to the quiz scandal without mentioning it by name. Some of you read with me 40 years ago a portion of Aristotle's Ethics, a selection of passages that describe his idea of happiness. You may not remember too well. I remember better, because, despite the abrupt caesura in my academic career that occurred in 1959, I have gone on teaching the humanities almost continually to students of all kinds and ages. In case you don't remember, then, I remind you that according to Aristotle happiness is not a feeling or sensation but instead is the quality of a whole life. The emphasis is on whole, a life from beginning to end. Especially the end. The last part, the part you're now approaching, was for Aristotle the most important for happiness. It makes sense, doesn't it? All the answers. The July 28, 2008 issue of The New Yorker included a personal reminiscence titled All the Answers, written by Van Doren, in which he recounted in detail the scandals and their aftermath. Other than very occasional and often very abbreviated references to it, Van Doren had never before spoken publicly about the scandal, his role, and its effects on his life. He referred to the film, saying he was bothered most by the closing credits reference that he never taught again. I didn't stop teaching, though it was a long time before I taught again in a college. But he also said he enjoyed John Turturro's portrayal of his 21 rival, Herb Stempel. The article also contradicted many impressions of Van Doren that the film had created. A film portrayed him as a bachelor when he was actually engaged. It suggested he had a fascination with the burgeoning, popular television quiz shows when in fact he did not even own a television set. That the only reason he became even mildly acquainted with 21 was because co-producer Al Friedman shared a mutual acquaintance with one of Van Doren's friends. And, that he had been offered his job with Today promptly after losing to Vivian Nearing when, in fact, NBC was not sure at first what to do with him, until he did work for Dave Garroway's Sunday afternoon cultural show, Wide Wide World, which then led to the invitation to join Today. Van Doren also addressed and denied the film's insinuations that he had been friends with congressional investigator Richard Goodwin while Van Doren was 21's reigning champion. According to Van Doren, the two men had not met until August 1959, When the subcommittee to which Goodwin served as counsel had begun investigating the quiz shows and Van Doren was already established on the Today Show. The producers of Quiz Show had sought his cooperation as a consultant, but Van Doren rejected it at the time. References. Further reading: Thomas Doherty, Quiz Show Scandals, The Museum of Broadcast Communications. Jeffrey Hart, Van Doren and Redford, National Review, November 7, 1994. Lena Lofro, Charles Van Doren vs. The Quiz Show Dream Team, Time, September 19, 1994. Robert Metz, CBS, Reflections in a Bloodshot Eye. Joseph Stone, Prime Time and Misdemeanors, Investigating the 1950s TV Quiz Scandal a DA's account. David Halberstam, The 50s, Random House, 1993. Charles Van Doren, All the Answers, The New Yorker, July 28, 2008. External links: The Quiz Show Scandal, American Experience, PBS, The Remarkable Van Dorens, Time, February 11, 1957, Testimony of Charles Van Doren on the Quiz Show Scandals.